thank you very much for coming. Thank you again, Nora, for the invitation. It's always a pleasure to talk to the people that Nora's group always brings here about basic insurance concepts. Just a brief introduction of myself. I'm an insurance agent in Mexico and an insurance agent here in the United States. I have licenses for California, Florida, New York, Colorado, and Texas. And most of the times the people I work with is Mexican nationals or foreigners that do not really understand the insurance culture here. So the basic of this presentation is to try and guide some of the possible buyers of the products and services that you offer. I'm giving them an insight on how the insurance market works in regards to home and auto insurance. So I drafted a lot of questions here that I'm going to just try to explain a little bit about it. And basically the first question is, what is the difference between insurance in Mexico and in the United States? And to begin with, it's a federal regulation in Mexico. With one license you're able to sell in all parts of the country. Here you have to find an agent in Texas that has a license in Texas to do insurance in Texas. And that is one of the biggest differences. The other difference is that in the United States, the underwriting has to have a lot to do with your age, your credit history, your insurance history, where did you study, how far did you go in school, who's your wife, and all the information. The demographics are very important for insurance companies. It's not just giving them the square footage and the address of the house. It has a lot to do. And the next question is, do you know what you have to need to provide in order to have an offer for insurance? It's basically filling an application, and there is a lot of public information regarding the homes, and you must know more than I do about Silo and other instances where you can get the extra appraisal district, etc., where we can get information. But the demographics, again, plays a very big role. What is the first thing that a mortgage company or a lender is going to ask for? They're going to ask for a certificate of insurance, or at least the deck page or the declaration pages, where they can prove that the insurance requirements have been met. Some people believe that that the bank is going to make you buy the insurance that they suggest, and that's not it. And you can cancel any insurance at any time. And I also like to mention that considering an escrow is very important, because first of all, you're going to forget about paying the taxes. They're going to be part of the escrow. And second of all is the insurance. And ever since I refinanced my home and I went to more escrow and I have my taxes paid, in December I don't have headaches. And in the renewal time I don't have to worry about it. I just have to get a good insurance offer and put it in front of the mortgage. Okay, I already mentioned the escrow. Has anybody ever asked the question of what are the differences between the types of insurances that you could have for a home in the United States? And there's many different types of policies. Most people live in condominiums. The condo association takes care of insuring the walls out. They take care of the common areas, the elevators, whatever is part of the common areas. And the owner has to take care of the insurance from the walls inside. All the betterments, improvements, contents, their personal property. And of course, liability has a lot to do with... do you have a question? Sorry, Sarah. No. And a lot has to do with the type of home. Is it a secondary home? Is it a vacation home? Is it your primary residence? Is it under construction? Is it occupied? Is it unoccupied? And most of the times, the people that I'm used to deal with for the last 13 years here in the U.S., who usually have been foreign nationals, is what the difference does it make? It's the same house, it's the same construction, it's the same value. Yeah, but the kind of risk the insurance company is going to insure is completely different. It's not the same to have a vacant house or a vacant dwelling, or to have an occupied home, or to make it your residence, or have it as a secondary home or vacation home. So that also makes a difference. What kind of insurance do I need if I'm going to rent my house to somebody else? So in other words, I can be the landlord or I can be the tenant. If I'm the landlord, I need to ask my client or the person that's going to occupy the house to have a renter's insurance. That is going to cover the liability to damage to third parties as well as the damage you could cause to the property in regards to fire or explosion that is caused inside the property, and it's your legal liability. It's what you have to pay. And also, you're going to insure your personal property as a tenant. And that is very important that the owner of the house, the one that is renting, understands, because most of the times they just get the renter, they want to sign the contract, and they forget about all of this. And it's very important, because if there is a loss and the guilty party is the tenant, their insurance is going to pay, and it's very cheap insurance. The renter's insurance is very, very cheap. What are the coverage I already mentioned? What happens if you have a house that has been unoccupied? You have to declare that to your insurer within 60 days of the house being empty. And there's a difference between having an empty dwelling or an unoccupied home. That's different. So if you're going to go through changes in regards to the occupancy of your home, you have to notify your insurance agent. This is a little bit like going to the doctor. You have to call him about the headache, and he's going to tell you take an aspirin. It's very simple, but you need to be in contact with your insurance agent. What does flood insurance cover? And that is something very important, because I'm sure that when you go to a lender or you go to a bank, they will know if you're in a floodplain, and they're going to ask you for flood insurance. But it's something that is done by the federal government. Usually the insurance agents will not sell flood insurance, which usually don't. It is possible, but basically it's very important for you to know if your home is in a floodplain, and if it's a requirement from the bank or the lender or the mortgage company to have flood insurance. Very important. What happened in Harvey was a big lesson. Not very many people had insurance. By the way, my mother's house was 2 blocks away from the Buffalo Bayou, and she was saved by about this much.
Oh,
the water just went into the garage, no damage.
Wow.
None of the water went in home, and most of the neighbors got completely flooded.
Wow.
Yeah. Okay, now, most of the times when we buy a house, the documents we're signing is an insurance contract. It's called title insurance. You're not buying like the deed. You're buying title insurance. You're getting an agreement in which there is eviction, which is basically the only risk that is covered. You're going to get your money back if somebody else is the real owner of the home you bought. This is a insurance that is paid by the seller, usually. It is between 1% and 2% of the total value. You just pay it once, and it can be inherited to your descendants. You don't have, if you give your house to one of your family members, you can include the policy. If you sell the house, it's got to be a new insurance, because there's a new review of the title and the liens and everything in between. So in regards to homeowners, does anybody have any questions or any other comments? This is just like a panning of what all of life for homeowners.
Yeah, no, it's great.
Yes, please.
And I want to really, I appreciate you speaking in English tonight, because I saw this presentation with you in Spanish and didn't get half of what you're saying tonight. So I do have a question. Is there a difference between insurance in a owner-occupied home and if I own my home and I want to Airbnb it? Do I need different insurance if I'm Airbnb-ing? Or?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, because you're going to be a landlord, and you would have a different type of liability. Because if you invite me to your home and I slip and fall, I'm going to make a claim against your homeowner's policy. But if I'm a guest, there's a contract. There is a commercial relationship. So you need to notify your insurance company that your home is a short-term rent and that you're doing it under Airbnb. I don't know if they already have a program that you can use, and I believe they do so have a worldwide program where you can buy from them the policy. But your insurance needs to know that it's not you occupying. Again, I go back to what I said at the beginning about the demographics. If the home is insured under your name, you are supposed to be the person occupying the house. If you're not the one occupying the house, you need to have a different kind of policy as a landlord, and the renter has to get his own renter's insurance.
Thank you.
Okay? Well, the second part has to do with auto insurance, because it's also something very interesting. and most of the clients I've dealt with in the last 13 years are new residents or Mexican nationals that have homes here and have cars, and I'm just gonna cover a few little things about it. And why should I have my car insured? Well, here in Texas and in most states it's mandatory, and at least you have to have certain coverage for bodily injury and property damage to third parties. The structure of an insurance policy here is a little bit different than in Mexico. There's more coverages here, like you can cover just collision, or you can cover just any kind of damage that the car has. In Mexico, those two coverages are under the scope of only one. You can buy uninsured or underinsured, which is something that in Mexico does not exist. And if you find your car that somebody bumped into it and ran away, you can imply it was an uninsured, and you instead of paying a full deductible, you would only pay $250. The demographics, again, very important. A lot of people tell me, well, my son is 19 years old and we're paying very high premium for him. You have to wait till he's 25, so you start getting a reasonable premium. But what if I don't say he's a driver? Well, you can do whatever you want, but that would not be my suggestion. You need to declare each and every one of the members of the household. If your son is at school somewhere else and is not at home, you also have to notify your insurance company or your agent about it. And it's very important. Until they are 25, they're going to get high rated because they're considered to be inexperienced drivers.
I have a question.
Yes.
Like, if I go to Mexico and I'm in an accident, but I have my insurance here, will it cover it? I mean, I know it depends of the insurance, but let's say I have full coverage. Can I have a different?
You're reading ahead of me. The next
Oh,
question.
sorry.
That's the next question. It's very good
question.
because
I'll be patient.
It works very differently. If you have a Mexico license plate car and you have it insured in Mexico, the insurance covers anything that happens to the car in Mexico, Canada, and the United States, except liability. So when you cross the border, you should buy what we call northbound insurance, which is just to cover liability, third party, bodily injury, property damage, okay? Most of the insurance companies in Mexico give for free a policy that would cover you for eventual trips. I came to San Marcos to do some shopping, I came to the doctor, I came to see my girlfriend, whatever. I'm gonna be here 2 weeks, 3 weeks, but when you live here, you cannot have such a cheap insurance as property damage and bodily injury or liability, because it's not fair that your neighbor who's a U.S. resident and drives the car every day as you are pays $1,000 for that, and you're only paying $200 for your policy, so it's not fair. But that sometimes is the case when people have cars here, that they just come and use the car eventually when they come to their vacation home. That's okay. Now, from the United States, if your car is Texas license plated or United States plated, you have to first of all get a permit to take the car into Mexico as a tourist. We call it southbound. Banjército provides that permit, and it's good for 1 year, but you are only allowed to stay with a car in Mexico for 6 months.
Yes.
You have to come back and forth. Now, U.S. policies cover cars in Mexico up to 25 miles south of the border for occasional and eventual trips. You cannot live in Tijuana and go every day to San Diego, go to the restaurant, go to party, come back, and think that your U.S. policy is covering you. No, you have to buy a Mexico tourist policy, and you need full coverage because your policy that only covers you for 25 miles into the border is good for occasional driving. But if you're going to keep your car in Mexico, you need tourist policy in Mexico that is full coverage.
Very nice. Thank you.
Welcome.
That was very helpful.
Okay, the next topic has to do with umbrella coverages. An umbrella is an excess policy that would apply in case you exhaust the limits of your primary policy. And what is that good for? Well, you never know when catastrophe can happen. Your brakes can go bad and you can crash into a school bus and hurt many kids, or you could have some kind of a situation, a seizure, a stroke, or whatever, and lose control of the car and run into a restaurant, or, I mean, when is that going to happen? And all the clients always think that nothing's gonna happen to them until it happens. But once it's happens, it's too late. You can buy umbrella policy to have excess limits or bigger limits, and you can do it for your car, you can do it for your home, and you could also do it for, in the case of a company, for workers' compensation and others. The important part is that umbrella policies are very cheap because they only operate in excess of the primary policy. So let's say I have a $1 million on my home on liability, and I want to buy $5 million. If I'm paying $600 for my policy and I want $5 million on the excess, I might be paying $200 or $300. It's not proportional, so it's not going to be 6 times. And I mean, is it recommended? I think we all have to tell our clients about the existence of umbrella policies, because you never know when something can go really, really wrong. But we're not here to scare people. We're here to tell them what their options are and to provide always the best advice. I wrote a little book, or a chapter of a book, of the differences between insurance in Mexico and here. It's in Spanish, and I think I also have it in English. If anybody wants a copy, I'll gladly forward to you a copy for that. So basically that's what I wanted to say, and I also want to thank again Nora and for the opportunity. And if there's any further questions, I have my business cards and also my contact information.
Thank you, Ricardo. So where can they contact you? What's your cell phone number, or where can they contact you?
210-896-3855, and my email is rdrios@dris-us.com.
Okay, thank you very much. Everything was super informative and helpful, and thanks again. And now also, if you need the information in Spanish, of course,
Awesome.
yes, we speak Spanish.
Thank you.
Welcome. Thank you. Bye.
Hi, I'm Sarah with Chicago Title. This is Polly, also with Chicago Title. And this evening we're going to talk a little bit about the process of title. And Polly will explain a little bit about title insurance and then the closing process as well.
Thanks so much, Nora. We appreciate the opportunity. So just a little bit about title insurance. Rodrigo kind of gave y'all a good, I'm sorry, I just called you.
Don't matter.
Could we start over?
No.
I apologize.